So we might as well get started because we invited everybody to come at around, well, initially at 3:30, right?
Yeah.
And then we decided to go to 3:20 because
20.
there's actually a lot of information that we need to like partake and communicate before the actual landing that occurs at 3:55 p.m. Right? And so so let's it's 3:21 now. We're going to start our official live stream. And we want to welcome all our friends to the live stream.
Yep.
This is our landing day stream of NASA's Mars Perseverance rover landing. And we'll be talking, in this particular episode, we're going to talk about the the current international effort to explore Mars. Okay? So it's not just the United States, it's not just China. There's actually a huge number of countries that's currently in this modern space race to get to Mars and to learn about it. So right now we are looking at a couple of NASA live feeds. This first one, the one that I'm preferring right now, is the one that's showing the control room at JPL, right? And these are the guys you want to look at 3:55 when the data comes through. As to whether or not the spacecraft Perseverance safely landed or not.
Yep.
You can tell because if it's successful, they'll be jumping up and down, hugging and crying. And if the spacecraft accidentally blows up or somehow is damaged or loses communication, everybody will be very somber. Right? They'll be like, communication loss. Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Communication loss.
Yeah. Let me see. Actually, I think
Is anyone
I can. Participants. So far, no. All right, but that's okay. Remember, we're recording this for the rebroadcasting as well. Remember later on.
Yep.
So, yeah, and I did in the initial announcement. I did say 3:30. So I want to get off to a little early start, because I want to like put some information down for those people who are interested.
Yep.
Okay. And first of all, let me bring up some of the other information. 1 second. My secondary laptop here.
That was my laptop.
Yeah.
I use it for my school.
Yeah. I mean, I could go off the top of my head, but I'd rather have
information about it so you don't get lost track.
Yeah, 1 second, please.
All stations at this time on M20 EDL op. At this time, we will go quiet.
So until like some people show up, let me turn up the volume in this one.
Yep.
Okay.
Here we go.
And it's actually worth listening to the people. So they're getting ready. These are like the engineers at JPL, and they're getting ready to basically, there's a major problem in terms of communication between the Earth and Mars, because the distances are so far. You can only communicate by radio, right? And radio is a form of light. It's a wavelength of light, and light travels at a certain speed. You cannot go faster than that. That's what Einstein says in his theory of relativity. And so it takes I'm not quite sure, but something like 30 minutes or something to get out to Mars and back again.
Yep.
So there's no way you can control like the orbiter or the lander directly, like you can with like a remote control airplane or something like that.
Yeah.
Instead, what you have to do is you have to make the lander and the rover and the orbiter all autonomous. It means like you have to have a little computer in there, and they have to decide what to do by themselves without people telling them what to do.
Yep.
Because it's so far away, right? By the time you say, stop, turn left, it would already been like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
You understand? This is only our second live streaming.
I can give a high-level overview of some of the events that are going to transpire throughout EDL. Of course, commentary will be detailing this as we go through.
All right, let me check if somebody's online first.
It's
a lot.
Calling
you know how to check it? You click right here, and then you click on participants. And so far, it's still nobody here. Oh, that's too bad. I was hoping somebody would come arrive a little bit earlier.
Like my friend.
Yeah, Well, maybe they'll
We
come
will
sooner or
first
later.
start,
So we'll
shortly
see.
here we'll get
So we're
news
definitely live.
that
All right.
the vehicle
So
has
it doesn't matter. It's just
separated
you and
the
me,
cruise
Kitty
stage,
Cat, like always.
since we no longer
Okay?
need that.
All right. So
We
I'm
need
going to
to
go
prepare
through
for
and
entry into
tell
the
you
atmosphere.
what's actually the really
After that,
interesting thing
we
about this
will,
entire
indeed
um,
start the
current
entry
era that we're
process.
living in. Oh, it's politics. Hey, guys. All right, lower the volume. All right. Let me turn down the volume a little bit over
We'll
here.
be gathering data from our
What's over-
medley
My
sensors,
mouse is. One second.
and we'll be
Yeah,
decelerating.
thank you.
Yeah. Just
There we go. All right, so we want to welcome politics, and go ahead. You can type in your good mornings.
Take out the back of the back shell.
What we're looking at right now is the JPL control room, and I was telling Kitty Cat earlier.
Yeah.
This is my preferred view because on the other one, all you have is like chatter boxes, right? They're giving general public information that's potentially useful if you don't know anything about the mission. This view is interesting because you'll find out directly whether or not the mission failed or succeeded by the reaction of all these engineers sitting behind their consoles. And we'll find out exactly at 3:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is in about 30 minutes, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So, given the communication lag to Mars, let's see. Light speed to Mars. I think it's like 30 minutes. I'm not sure. Let me check.
Center of gravity or CG offset throughout the guided entry phase. So these are called the.
All right. So given the speed of light, okay, the distance to Mars currently is about 10 minutes.
So we'll go ahead and
So if you say something, for example, if you communicate something to the orbiter right now, it will take 10 minutes to get there, and then another 10 minutes for the orbiter to communicate back to you. So round trip communication, the distance is so vast. It's like it's going to take 20 minutes just to get there and back again, right? So that's why that's one of the difficulty with landing on Mars. On the Moon, the delay is only like I think half a second, something like that. So you can like have almost instantaneous communication, right? You can virtually control robotic missions to the Moon with a joystick like on Earth. But you cannot do the same with Mars. And that's why there has been like so many failures, okay, in previous missions. 1 second here. So if you have any questions, yeah, hopefully they'll react happy. I'm still bringing up my stuff here. There's actually a lot of information I like to communicate before the actual landing takes place. So
All stations at this point, let's limit our traffic on the net to critical issues only.
And all right, so let me see. Give me a second. See, when I'm not being spontaneous, it's not as much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As per step
But I want to like give some
we can
correct
confirm
information
that
and not just like
MRO
take it off the
starts
top of
in
my head. All right. So currently,
Copy, EDLCOM.
there's a fleet of spacecraft around Mars. There are spacecraft that has just recently entered the orbit of Mars, and there are spacecraft that will be launching or are on the way to Mars, right? And it's by various different countries. So just a simple breakdown. There's something like 10 spacecraft from 5 different space agencies from 5 different countries. Okay, there's spacecraft from the United States, the European Union, India, China, and the United Arab Emirates. That's either orbiting or on the ground or in the process of getting there. So the 2 main ones that we're talking about today is NASA's Perseverance rover, and we talked about that quite a bit yesterday, right? Remember the giant nuclear-powered Mars rover? That's the size of a school bus, okay? And that's the one that's landing today. But also significant is China's Tianwen-1 mission, which is very ambitious because, all right, in the past, this is how the space agencies used to do it. They would launch an orbiter, right? So basically, it's like an orbiting satellite, okay, like a communication satellite or a reconnaissance satellite around the orbit of Mars.
Yeah.
And then they would launch a lander. And when the lander gets there, it uses the orbiter to communicate back to Earth, right? It shoots a message up to orbit. It hits the orbiter like redirects that back to Earth. And then on Earth, you have these like huge like dish arrays, antenna arrays, like all across the world that listens out into deep space. And they pick up these very faint signals from these spacecraft, right? And that's how it works. And then, once the lander's down there, the next mission would typically be a rover, because like a lander just sits in one place, right? So you find an interesting spot on Mars, you shoot a lander down there, and it takes a look around. It can analyze the gas, the wind, the radiation, all sorts of things, but it's stuck in one place.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago, people started putting rovers, like those little robot cars we talked about yesterday,
Yeah.
up on Mars so that they can drive around and explore the planet, right? And the United States has been very successful with that effort so far. In fact, it has been the only one that has managed to put any sort of rovers on Mars. Yeah, the United States has been very lucky in that regard, but that's the landing part of the mission, right? So more recently, you have new players. For example, India managed to send a mission. It's basically an orbiting spacecraft.
Yeah.
So it's like a reconnaissance weather satellite, and they put it around Mars. So they're able to like follow the Mars weather. It's nothing new because the United States also already have, like, for example, the let me see.
Flight, you're about 14 minutes.
I believe 2 Mars observation satellites
The vehicle is
already in orbit.
currently preparing the heat rejection system.
Yeah, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, Mars Odyssey, and also the Maven spacecraft. So there's like 3 orbiters that the United States have in orbit. India, this was like in 2014. They did it on a very low budget, something like 70 to 80 million.
We have now
Was
enabled
it 70
the
to 80 million dollars, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not talking about like hundreds of millions or even a billion. And they were able to successfully send their Mangalian-1 spacecraft to Mars. And it's still orbiting there and communicating. And then you have the European Union that has 2 orbiters. Mars Express, right, that was like sent quite a while ago. And ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter. Let me see. I believe that...
Once the cruise stage is jettisoned.
Give me a second here.
We are firing our first pyros to vent the HRS liquid and gas.
Yeah, so politics is saying, surprised that only the U.S. is able to land rovers. Yes, because it's just so difficult, you know? Even the United States, remember we discussed yesterday that one landing attempt that they misprogrammed the computer using metric instead of like, inches instead of like metric. So that lander crashed, the entire vehicle was lost. More recently, the European Union tried a landing, I think it was at the Schiaparelli, and that vehicle was lost as well. So it's very difficult, and that's why the current set of vehicles remember I told you about like the Chinese effort?
Yeah.
So, let me see, 1 second. All right, so China has the... 1 second, here we go. I just want to pull up some information. China has been very ambitious recently, right? So just last year, they were able to land on the dark side of the moon, which nobody has done like ever.
Yep.
And before that, that I think was like their second or third landing of a rover on the moon. They landed on the near side as well. And that's the first time in almost like 40 or 50 years that, anybody has landed on the moon, right? So the Chinese, their space program is really interesting. It's mostly military funded. So we don't know the exact figure of like how much they spend on it,
Yep.
but they spent quite a lot because I think they're very ambitious. This is kind of like the new world. Like, remember I told you in history, like during the time of Columbus, when like people found the new world and then everybody like rushed to like go there and take up land and stuff like that. We're living in almost like the same type of era, except now it's not like a new continent, it's the new planets, right? Like the moon and Mars and stuff. So, do you have any questions so far? Remember, you're free just to ask me anything if like it's not clear. Okay? So, China, this mission is like really ambitious. So I was saying before, typically people would send like an orbiter, then they would send a lander, and then they would send a rover. China's mission, and remember, China has not managed to do to send any sort of robotic mission to Mars, right? Not even an orbiter. This particular mission that they sent, and it's already gone to orbit, like I believe on February 10, but they're not going to land the lander until May, so a couple of months later. Okay, but it's very ambitious because it's all three in one package.
Yep.
They have an orbiter, they have a lander, and they have a rover. And actually, their rover is equipped with some really interesting scientific packages, including a ground-penetrating radar. Right? You know what that is?
No.
It's what like archaeologists use to like study like what's under the ground, like graves or structures under the ground. Right?
Yep.
So, like when you're digging like a grave or something, right? Or like you're looking for treasure.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what you use the ground penetrating radar for. And it's actually one of those instruments that nobody has sent before. And it's going to be really interesting. I mean, I'm very hopeful that both Perseverance by the United States and the Chinese spacecraft will deploy successfully. Because that's a lot of information coming back, and you get to learn a lot about the planet, right?
Yeah.
Perseverance itself is a very big rover and lander combination. And the unique thing about it is that the rover is equipped to actually take core samples
Yeah.
and then deposit it in these little like silo dumps, right? That you can later on retrieve and send back to the planet Earth.
Yep.
So they want to actually like dig up some dirt or ground from Mars, put it in a little capsule, and then later on in a follow-up mission, they'll come get that and shoot it back to Earth to study. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
I give honorable mention to the United Arab Emirates. This is a small country. It's one of those like oil-rich countries. There's only like 10 million people, right? So they're really throwing above their weight here.
And then we'll to its desired orientation from.
Let me give you a little bit of detail on that particular mission as well.
Two balance mass that has kept it balanced during all of cruise. This will allow the entry capsule to have lift.
So, I'm reading from an article. After a voyage of 7 months and 300 million miles, the spacecraft Hope has reached its destination, from where it will offer an insight into what would be needed to support life on Mars.
Yeah.
Provide vital information about the current state of the red planet. This mission took place, the duration was like 687 days in orbit, so it's going to be up there for about, I guess, 2-3 years. Excuse me. So the UAE will chart the changing atmosphere and weather patterns through 4 seasons, along with the levels of hydrogen and oxygen, and send back a steady stream of data and imagery.
Points carrier lock.
And I believe, like when I read about this in the past, that it was a collaboration with like various universities in the United States as well, including like Berkeley University and stuff. But that's very remarkable because like when you have a nation that small and they're able to like actually send a successful mission to orbit Mars, even though the science is being replicated in many ways from the other previous orbiters that's already reached there. It's still very significant, and it's certainly better than like spending money on like weapons and stuff, right? Right. So, yeah, politics is saying it's a new age of colonialism. All right, so I'm gonna put aside my little reference book here. So, And
has nothing
yes, you're exactly right. It's we're at one of those times in history.
We're currently
It comes. It's very cyclical in a way, where the technology allows humanity to actually expand out, right? And do you remember when Columbus sailed the ocean blue?
Nope.
1492, right? 1492. So what year is it now? It's like 2021. So that's like, wow, 500, 600 years ago. But remember, even before that, like about 100 years before that, you had like Chang He from the Chinese Empire, like sailing his fleet of treasure ships all the way to Africa, right? So it seems like in human history, there are these like cyclical periods, like 500 years or whatever, when the technology becomes like advances far enough that suddenly you're able to like open up an entirely new world of frontiers.
Yeah.
And that's where we are right now. And just to check up on the time right now, it's 3:43, and we're going to see. Yeah, I'm going to like I'm going to quiet down when we get close to the actual landing itself. It's scheduled for 3:55. So for the people hanging on here, it's going to be only about 10-15 minutes.
Hey! Toys and lovely animals!
Huh? No, please don't do that. Yeah, I don't want to be distracted. So, oh, I see. Hi, toys and lovely animals. He's my friend from Israel, and he has a lovely channel, showing like all kinds of toys and also all kinds of animals. He has a dog called Gur and a cat called Mimi. So, thank guys for coming, and. Yeah, and people who actually watch this either now or on the replay later on, I really recommend you guys check out my friend's channel. Politics Made Simple has a lot of interesting discussion on U.S. political developments, including a new video that I haven't had a chance to see yet, Politics, but I will after this live stream, all right? And then please go also check out Toys and Lovely Animals. It's just a really wonderful channel for children.
Yep.
Okay.
To receive the signals from Perseverance.
Yeah.
It should be in a few minutes here. We're just flight level 1.
So I'm listening into the NASA feed right now. And you notice everybody's getting really tense now because we're about 10 minutes away from the actual landing. Yeah. And actually, you know, if the lag delay is 10 minutes, then it's actually landing right now at 3:45 p.m.
Yeah.
Right? But you're not going to know about it because the light of speed is finite. So it's going to take 10 minutes from Mars for that information to get here. So the spacecraft has either landed or it has already crashed. Okay?
Yeah.
Right? But we're not going to know about it for 10 minutes. But in real time, it has already happened. Okay? And at this point, remember when we were talking about yesterday? First of all, the spacecraft, it came into Mars orbit already, right? When it came by close to Mars, it turned its engines around, burned the engine for something like 15 minutes, typically. And then that slows the spacecraft enough so that the gravity of Mars pulls it around the planet. And now it's circling the planet. It's called orbit, right? Yeah. And now the lander itself with the rover detaches from the spacecraft, and the lander is equipped with a huge aero-braking shield. It's like a cone, like a shield. Remember a shield? Yeah. So it uses that to plow through the thin Martian atmosphere. And Mars' atmosphere is very thin, so it makes this procedure very difficult. Okay? The Martian atmosphere is only like 1% or something like that of Earth, right?
Yeah.
But it still has to, like, you know, you want to slow, because when you're in orbit, you're going very, very fast. And you have to slow down in order to land.
Yeah.
So you plow through the thin air, and you're like a comet. Remember when you see a shooting star? And it's like it's burning bright?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because it's the friction of the air is setting it on fire almost. It's going so fast against the air. Remember friction? You study friction, right?
Yeah.
When you're rubbing your hand together, you feel the heat?
Yeah.
Yeah, the same thing when the air is rubbing against the spacecraft. It will like cause it to heat up and also slow it down. Okay? So now, at this point, the spacecraft is already in that maneuver. This has already happened. The spacecraft has done the aero braking. It's slowed down enough so that it can pop out a preliminary parachute. That parachute will slow the spacecraft even further. But you have to remember, with the air so thin, parachutes don't work that well on Mars, right?
Yeah.
Like here, because parachutes require what? Air in order to slow
Air.
down. Yeah. So after the preliminary parachute slows it down enough, it pops out a secondary parachute, even a bigger one.
We are
And it has to do this in stages, because if you pop out the big parachute right away, and if you're going too fast, the air, even thin as it is, will just like burn and strip the parachute away, and the parachute is destroyed, right? And then once it gets the parachute, once it brings the spacecraft down, I believe below 1 kilometer, it's jettisoned. The heat shield is jettisoned, right? And what you have left is the rover and the final landing stage. The final landing stage is really interesting. It's like a rocket-equipped little mothership almost, right? And it hovers around on these retro rockets. It finds the landing site, and then it deploys the rover down using a cable, right? Once when the rover is down, it cuts the cable and it flies away somewhere else. And then the rover is successfully on the ground, and then it's ready to do its mission.
Someone's here.
Oh, hi! Thank you, thank you, my friend from Japan. So, we're just discussing the mechanics for the Perseverance rover landing right now. We're at 3:48 Eastern Standard Time, and the landing scheduled to be in about 6 minutes. We will know about it in around 3:55 p.m. Right? So that's what we're doing now. I'm just praying that it works, because this is a huge investment for the United States.
Yep.
And there is a heavy political dimension to this that's really interesting to discuss, because remember, India has successfully orbited a spacecraft around Mars. India and China are like not very friendly. They're like huge competitors.
Yeah.
And China has not been able to go to Mars. This is its first attempt, right? So China is like betting everything on its spacecraft being able to get into Mars orbit, which it has done, and then landing and deploying its rover, right?
Yeah.
And the United States has a huge investment as well, because the United States has been like the leader in the effort for the past like almost 20, 30 years, right? Actually, from the very beginning, when it sent the first Pioneer spacecraft to do the photo reconnaissance of Mars, and sending back these like grainy black and white pictures in like the 1950s and 60s.
Yep.
And then later on, it sent the Viking spacecraft that Carl Sagan worked with. And those were actually landers that came down in the 1970s and tried to perform like experiments on the sand of Mars to see if it could detect life, signs of life, right? And the indications were that there were, but people are still arguing about the results, because it could have been like inorganic, it could have been organic. They're not quite sure. And then later on, we have the series of rovers, like Curiosity and Opportunity and all those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, we are 5 minutes away, 3:50. So, what's going on today? No more giant birds.
No.
No. All right, I'm going to increase the volume here, because this is getting important.
To the landing target.
And I'm going to quiet down a little bit so you guys can listen in.
End of range control, range minus 1.9 kilometers, cross range minus 2.4 kilometers.
Perseverance is going about 1 kilometers per second at an altitude of about 16 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have entered heading alignment.
So what we're seeing here is not only a technological, pushing of the boundaries. It's also a political, right, expressed in terms of technology. And it's really interesting because, and in a way unfortunate, because the United States and China right now have a very bad relationship, right? There's actually a rule in Congress that forbids the United States from cooperating with China on any space mission, even though we're able to cooperate with the Russians, which are even more hostile to us, right? So unfortunately, what happened is that all all these spacecraft, like in Mars, are able to communicate with each other, right? And they
Our
use
current
each other to
velocity
like help
is
communicate with
500
Earth. But that doesn't work
15
with the United
meters
States
per
and
second at an
China.
altitude of about
So
15 kilometers
those two
from the
spacecraft, they
surface.
don't talk to each other at all, right? So, and the European Union is also very active as well. Unfortunately, their main
We are
mission
coming upon the
has been delayed significantly. It's actually a cooperative mission with
where
the
the
Russians,
spacecraft will jettison
and
the
it's not
entry
going to be
from
launching until
NASA
like
in preparation
2022.
for parachute deploy
So
and to roll
they're
over
about
to
like
give the radar
9
better
months
look
behind,
at the
something like
ground.
that.
Applicant indicates chute deploy.
All right, we have indication
The
of the chute
navigation has
deployed.
confirmed that the parachute has deployed.
All right, awesome.
Deceleration.
Okay, so we're having preliminary deceleration, and you see everybody's like clapping their hands because that means that the lander is inside the atmosphere of Mars, right? The aero braking has already worked. Okay. It slowed the spacecraft enough so that you can shoot the parachute. Here's you can see the animation right here. That's the lander, and that's the parachute, the first parachute. Isn't that cool? This is a computer animation only, right? But it should be accurate. Oh, about 2 minutes to go. So, hey, I'm crossing my fingers. Everybody looks very happy at Mission Control on JPL. So I'm very hopeful that this will be successful. And if
converge. Velocity solution 3.3 meters per second. Altitude 7.4 kilometers.
Altitude 7.4 kilometers. All right, they're 7 kilometers up. That's about 3 miles, something like that. All right, so they're slowing down, and they will be jettisoning the parachute and the aero shield soon.
The initialization of terrain relative navigation and
of course, remember when they're on the way down, they're taking photographs of the landscape, right? And they also have like radar altimeters to determine how far they are from the land, right? Like the height.
OVS valid.
And this is where this is where international cooperation really plays a role, because I know that, for example,
we have timing of the landing engines.
All right, the landing engines are turning on, priming of the landing engine. So,
Back shell set.
all right, the shell has been separated. That means the aero shell has been released. All right, the looks like the rockets are activated.
We are currently performing the divert maneuver.
And what you're seeing here now is the spacecraft using the rocket engines to slow down physically, hovering almost, trying to find the right location so that it can lower the rover down onto the ground.
Altitude about 300 meters off the surface of Mars.
SDS level.
Constant velocity
104.
40. Constant
All
velocity
right, here comes the
40.
break, or make or break.
We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane.
And that particular vehicle is called the Sky Crane. And basically, it's just like a framework with rocket engines. Yeah, so cross your fingers.
About 20 meters.
Tango Delta.
20 meters from the surface. So if you imagine, that's like the height of the tree over there.
Nominal.
Right? It's coming down. It's coming down. It doesn't touch down. It lowers the rover down on a cable. All right, the cable has been released. All right, that means the rover is on the ground. And now it's going to like divert and shoot off to land somewhere else safe. Yay! You see? Everybody's laughing. Everybody's clapping. Successful. Oh, wow. All right. Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you, everyone who managed to take some time off and join us on our live stream.
Yeah.
I'm just so glad because this is such a huge investment,
Yeah.
especially for the scientists who work on this. It takes something like 10 years to build one of these rovers, and then wait for remember the opportunity to go to Mars occurs every 2 years. That's when the conjunction of the orbit aligns so that you can have the minimum distance from the Earth to Mars, right? That's why every 2 years you see this fleet of spacecraft being sent out. Because you can send the most out at the least expense every 2 years. Got it?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So
Touchdown confirmed. We're going to wait for the image.
the first major rover lander mission is successful, and that's from the United States. And we still have to get telemetry back, but like I said before, the Perseverance rover is just like so over-engineered that there's very little reason that it wouldn't work after it's been landed. The next interesting mission, and we'll probably do the live stream on that if we can find a live, is the mission from China. But unfortunately, China doesn't release instantaneous information on its missions. Usually after they successfully landed, and then they release information, right? So I'll probably have to do like a documentary or something on that instead.
We have seen the completion of EDL 3.
What are we waiting for now? We have good indication that the rover has landed, but what are we waiting for now is like first image. So the rover has to open its camera eyes and take a picture and send it back, so that we can see where it is.
From the lander.
Flight, this is OL3. I am ready to share.
All right, they're about to share. Looks like
OL3, you are go.
some sort of imagery.
For those on M,
All stations stand by for the images.
There, look. The first pictures are coming through. Let me see. There, you see that very blurry picture here?
Yeah.
The black and white?
I can't see it.
Yeah, it's very blurry. But all that tells you is that the spacecraft is alive, right? And it's able to see and is sending back a picture.
When you are
Okay?
ready.
Yeah.
We
So,
are ready, OL3. Go for it.
and where it landed is in this crater. In the past, this crater used to be flooded with water. So there was like a shallow ocean in there.
Yeah.
And that's why they're landing there, so they can find those signs of fossil life. Remember? Yeah. Okay. I think this is a good place to stop for now because everybody's busy. They need to get back to their work. But we want. Oh, there you go. You see the picture? You can see the shadow of the rover, and here are some rocks right here,
Yeah.
and the sand, and there's the horizon. It's a black and white picture, but you can see it, and it's on the ground, right? So. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in our live stream. We really, really appreciate your presence.
Yeah.
And, if you like, please leave a
comment.
comment.
Like, and subscribe.
I can never get that right. All right. We'll see you again soon, and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The cliff image, OL.
Okay.
activity this